Hi everyone, my name is Gabriella, or I would prefer if you call me Gabby, just because it's easier. Certain people like to pronounce my name a little bit weirdly, like Gabriella or Gabrielle, or just leave it as Gabby. So I just want to talk about organising a rally and uniting to organise a rally. There may be some setbacks. There may be people that are not as dedicated. That's fine. It's not meant to be smooth sailing. Now, we all know that fathers, men especially, have a great disadvantage when it comes to family law. This is whose fault? Who's at fault here? Do we blame the women, especially the women? I'm a woman. I'm a child of divorced parents. My mother, attempted to alienate me from my father. She kidnapped me, took me overseas, did all sorts of stuff with a boyfriend and, husband, and then sent me back to my dad before I became a teenager. So my dad was left with a broken, abused child. But not once did I think that my dad was a bad guy. So that's maybe just my scenario. My sibling believed all the lies that my mum told, and it took him many more years to realize that, my dad wasn't the bad guy. But either way, we knew that living with dad was a lot safer and better, and it was just by a miracle that my mum decided to send us to live with him. Needless to say that it almost killed my father. He fought. This happened 25 years ago. I'm just trying to explain to you people, ladies and gentlemen, that why I'm doing this and why I think that this is an agenda issue. Okay, I know some of you are going to be like, why is a woman up there talking? Well, some people have said that I'm a bit manly. When I was a teenager, people probably thought I was a bit tomboyish, or that I had the mind of a guy because I was so emotionless about things and whatever. Anyways, that's not the point. The point is that 25 years ago, my parents separated because they were never married, because they were hippies, and they separated in Canberra. I remember going to domestic violence houses, shelters with my mother, and just wondering, why are we here? Like, I couldn't understand, because as far as I was concerned, my father didn't hurt my mother. My father didn't hurt me. If anything, he would try to protect me from my mother. So it was always really confusing as to why I was there. At the same time, I was a child. Okay, so at this shelter, there was heaps of toys, heaps of, playgrounds, heaps of stuff to keep kids entertained. And when you're a child, you're really trying not to get into, your parents' issues. You're more distracted by what's in front of you, which is, school, friends, toys, boys, who knows, girls, who knows. So anyways, I knew that my father was fighting in court for us. All he got was every second weekend. I would count the days and hours till I could go and stay with my dad. He lived in a tiny little flat. He had to pay my mum child support. Next thing you know, my mum's got a guy in the house she's demanding that we call him dad, and we're just like, no. He's already, getting physical with us, and we try to tell my dad, and my dad goes back to court. My mum starts, they believe her. Let's just say they just believed all of her BS. Next thing you know, we're at a friend's house in Canberra, and my mum wakes us up. We stayed at this friend's house. This was my mother's ex-husband now, but at that time they were boyfriend and girlfriend. His brother's, so a step-uncle's house. She was married to an Aussie. She was all separated with all kids, all mixed families. We stayed there for a little while, a couple of weeks, a week, I'm not too sure, but we all of a sudden, Mum wakes us up with all of our suitcases ready to go, and she's like, we're leaving the country. We're going to Chile. And I was like, what about dad? What about my dad? I need to tell my dad and say goodbye to my dad. What's my dad? Shut up. don't mention your dad. I don't want to hear your dad's name, blah, blah, blah. She would bully me into silence. So I was so fearful of her all the time. But at the whole time I was thinking, what about my father? We get on the plane. At the same time, I'm excited to go meet my Chilean family, my uncles, my aunties, my cousins. You know, it was just me and my sibling here. So we were going to go meet cousins our own age. I mean, cool. I just remember the kids, you know, like when you're a kid, I was like 5 at this time. You know, what's in front of you is exciting. You still care about your dad and your mum and your parents or whatever it is that's going on, but you're also trying to forget about what's going on. So don't blame the kids. That's what I'm saying. Don't blame the kids. Anyway, we get to Chile, and the story that I was told, and which made sense. I mean, it was I turned 6 in Chile, and had a party, and I was missing my dad. I just wanted my dad to be there. I mean, my 6-year birthday, my dad had to be there, but he wasn't. Apparently, he had arrived in Chile on my birthday, but didn't want to ruin my birthday. I mean, my poor dad thought that if he rocked up to my 6th birthday party, that he was going to ruin it. And that was like far from the truth. I mean, for me at least, it was far from the truth. Even if my mum had made like a big scene about my dad being there, I wouldn't have given a crap. I would have preferred my dad to be there, but my dad couldn't read minds. My dad was so stressed out. My dad was fighting it hard, spending thousands of dollars in plane tickets and lawyers and all sorts of stuff just to, you know, make sure that we're not taking it off him forever. So anyways, I had a sad day. It was happy but sad as well. My 6th birthday in Chile with my cousins was fun, but it was still in the back of my mind about where my dad was. A couple of days later, my dad appears and we see my dad, and, you know, I'm so happy he's there, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, a couple of days later, Mum gets us up again in the morning, suitcases packed, and we're off to another country again. We're going to Spain, España, you know, we're going to Europe. I'm like, what about Dad again? It was always me asking about my dad. I mean, I'll be straight here. I was Daddy's little girl. I always has been, always will be. You know, might be the culture, might be, you know, it's not the culture, but, you know, I was Daddy's little girl. My dad had my older sibling who was a boy, brother. And then, you know, his family, there was just always boys. And then suddenly a girl came along, which was me, an accident. And he was over the moon. Finally, there was a girl in the family. So apart from my grandma on his side of the family. So anyways, I was his everything. He was my everything. He was my hero. So anyways, we're at the airport, the Chilean airport in Santiago, and I'm still really not feeling really uncomfortable about leaving the country without saying goodbye to my dad or anything like that. Before I go there, the story was that when my dad was in Australia, he got a call from my mother's sister, my auntie, who's always more level-headed and serious, like me probably. And she told my dad, where are you? And he's like, I am here in Canberra. And he's like, your kids are here. They're like at my house. And he thought she was joking. And she's like, no, like your ex, my sister, is here with your kids. Like, did you know that? Like, what's going on? And he was like, I had no idea. You know, I didn't think that she was going to take the kids, you know. There were no signs, you know. He in Canberra, he was given every second weekend and she was complying with it. So, you know, he didn't suspect that she would do that. But she did. I mean, she took out our Australian passports, you know, pretty quickly when we were young, and she, you know, we had those passports before they separated. So she was able to take us out pretty easily. Anyways, back to at the airport in Chile. We're in the Chilean airport, Santiago. I'm feeling very uncomfortable. I'm feeling like this isn't right. I'm trying to, you know, take things really slowly, like didn't want to go through there, like waiting around, looking around for Dad. And anyways, we get to the customs at the airport in Chile, because we're going to Spain, to Europe, and all of a sudden there was about 6 police officers that rocked up and took my mother away, took my brother away, took me away. We all got put in different rooms, and then what had happened was that my smart dad, because he wasn't going to let that happen again, he had put a notification out on all airports from Chile to Australia at that point. Well, in Chile, he did it in Chile, but it was already too late for him to do it in Australia. But he actually made sure that the first day that he got to Chile on my birthday, he didn't want to ruin my birthday, but he went to the courts in Chile and made sure that that me and my brother were not allowed to leave the country without his permission. So very traumatizing, all these police officers coming and arresting my mother, putting us in, and my mother's got a huge problem against police officers and army. And, the background of my story is that my parents were, my mum was exiled to Australia. She was exiled from Chile. Yeah, she had big issues with the government there. I mean, till this day, it's nothing much has changed over there, government-wise, law-wise. Nothing gets progressed. It always just stays the same. But anyway, needless to say, she does not like people in uniform. Anyone in uniform, she's had really bad experiences with. This is where her mental illness comes from, because my mother's mentally ill. She had post-traumatic stress disorder, narcissistic disorder, borderline personality disorder, psychosis, you name it. In Chile as a young teenager, up until before she even turned 20, she was already arrested and, in jail a couple of times. And this is not because she was a criminal, but because she was a political activist, fighting for freedom, fighting for justice. She had that in her blood, hence probably why I got it in my blood too. Anyways, back to the airport. She's fighting with the police officer, so I don't know where she got her strength. She must have had a psychotic episode because she took him on. A few hours go past. My dad arrives looking so sad and so stressed, and there's not much I can remember, but I remember that we had to go, back, and then we had to go to the courts. And yeah, my mum asked that she speak to us before we go in front of a judge. Sorry, this happened in Australia as well. I forgot to mention that she did this in Australia as well, but this is what her MO was. This is what she would do if we went up into court, because my dad would take her to court for visitation all the time. She also did this in Australia, in Canberra. She would ask to speak to us first before we went up in the stand, and she would bully us. She would threaten me, especially me, because she knew I was daddy's little girl and that I always just defended him. So she would say, if you effing say that you want to go with your effing dad, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to bash you, if you do that, then you don't love me, you're never going to see me again. At the back of my head, I was like, actually, the way you're acting right now, I don't want to see you again, but I'm actually scared that you might hurt me, because you have hurt me a lot already, physically. I mean, mentally and physically. I don't really want to get into too much the things that she used to do, and that my dad would try to protect me from. But let's just say that as a young age, as from the moment I was born, my mum hated me. And then when my dad took a love into me, because I was the only daughter, like when I became daddy's little girl, she got really jealous and hated me even more. So needless to say, she always wait until my dad wasn't around to belt into me or to do things really, really mean things. I guess one of the worst things that I can remember is her filling up a sink full of water and trying to drown me in it. Yeah, I think I would have been about 4 or 5 when she did that. So, yeah, they say she's mentally ill. So anyways, we're at the courts. Mum's threatening us again. All I wanted was not to go. I didn't want to go to Spain. I just was hoping in my heart and everything, please, Dad, don't let her take us to there, because I have a bad feeling. But I couldn't say it to him. I wasn't allowed to say it to him, because she would tell these police officers or court officials that that he was dangerous and that he was not to be left alone with us and that he was this and that. And, accused him of everything, which was so far from the truth, and they believed her. So they were very cautious about leaving me and my dad alone. If they had left me alone with Dad, I would have said, Dad, please get me the F out of here. Let's go back to Australia. Let's go leave this woman, go let her marry whoever she wants to marry or do whoever she wants to do and wherever she wants to go, but just don't make me go with her. But it wasn't that wasn't the case. And he ended up letting my mother take us to Spain because one of my mother's friends who he was locked up with her in the torture rooms, as they call it in Chile. Sorry, I keep moving my chair. Sorry if it's a bit weird, a bit like annoying, but a bit fidgety telling the story. But anyways, one of her friends went to speak to my father and said, look, mate, let her go because she's not well, and, let her do what she wants. And, the way that they tortured me was by making me watch what they did to her, So, that my dad always had a soft spot for my mum and always forgave my mum's abuse because, of what happened to her. So he let us go to Spain. And I don't want to get too much into what happened in Spain for the next 4 years. I can tell you that when I arrived at this new country, another new country I've never been before, and meeting my soon-to-be stepfather's family, I just had to go into the bathroom and cry. And my mum was like, oh, I'll go with her, and pretending to be all nice. Oh, my daughter, I'm going to go with you to the bathroom. It's okay, poor girl. And I honestly thought that she really did feel bad about me. When we got to the bathroom, when we were alone in the bathroom, she'd be like, shut the F up, you're making me look bad, blah, 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 stop crying here, wash your face, trying to, if you keep crying, I'm going to, fill this sink up with water and I'm going to drown you right here. Like, that was the kind of woman she was. So I guess when I had this thought just now that I want you dads to really be honest with yourself, to really, really don't try to block out or don't try to minimize your ex's abuse to you and to your children. Don't say, oh, she's a good mother for the sake of saying that she's a good mother, so you sound good or whatever. If you know what your ex is capable of, the mother of your children is capable of, if you've had to protect your children from her, imagine what it's going to be like when you're not there. It doesn't get better. I'm telling you, it doesn't get better. It doesn't get better at all. It gets worse. It gets a lot worse because, we remind her of you. We are weapons to hurt you. If she hurts us, she's hurting you, and that's what she wants. It's not just taking us to court and accusing you of court. That's one part of the pain that she wants to cause you. That's, maybe half of the pain that she wants to cause you. She wants to put you through courts and make all sorts of accusations and, hurt you that way and use your kids as pawns. That's 50% of how she's going to hurt you. The other 50 is literally hurting your kids. If you know that the mother of your children gets physical with your kids, you bet you're sweet that she's going to hurt them even more when you're not around. So dads, fight. Just fight for your kids. Like, I know, it's like, why do we have to fight? This is a chilled out country, Australia, be chilled out. And I get it. No dad should have to fight for the kids. But unfortunately, at the moment, with the system that is happening at the moment, that's being devised at the moment, that hasn't progressed at the moment, okay, you're dealing with a system where you have to go to court and you have to fight for your kids, okay? I wish you didn't have to. But when you're dealing with a narcissistic ex, if you know that your ex has got borderline personality disorder, whatever it is, mental illness that you know that she has, you're pretty sure that she has, you need to get your children out of there. Get them to a psychologist. tell the courts that you fear for your children. Just do it. Just do it. I mean, my dad tried to be the nice guy all the time and it got us nowhere. Nowhere. Got us in worse position. So that's my story. 4 years later, after all the more abuse that I got from my mother and her then husband, she sent us to live with my dad in Chile, who was in Chile at the time, before I became a teenager. So, yeah, I was so happy to finally get out of there. It was the best. I used to think about my dad all the time. Every time my dad would call, get this, my dad would call to talk to us. And he would be there, the stepfather would be there, and my mother would be there, and they would be pushing me and telling me what to say, telling him that he needs to send more money, telling him he needs to do this, telling me he needs to do that, telling me he's a no good deadbeat, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't want to, and then finally, after getting pinched from my mother saying, tell him where the money is, ask him, make him send more money. Why does she need so much money? I thought the guy that she married was wealthy. Anyways, I said, Dad, where's the money? And apparently that really hurt my dad because, he felt that was like having to ask me how I am and stuff. And you got to know that if it sounds like what they're saying is adult stuff, if your kids sound like what they're saying is they're a bit too young to be saying those things, it's probably because they are. It's probably because they are being taught to say it, okay? Every day that I hung out in Spain, in a small town in Spain, I hung out on the streets. I'd go home to sleep at night. Our younger half siblings were born. I was made to look after them. I was not allowed to go to school much because I had to look after my younger siblings, who I love dearly. And yeah, finally I got sent to Chile to live with my dad, and then we came to Melbourne. We moved to Melbourne in 1999 and never looked back. We didn't see my mother for 12 years after that. 12 years. I didn't really miss her. Not at all. I never liked her. I never trusted her. I always knew that she hated me, and I obviously yearned for a mother, and I used to get envious of all the other girls going shopping with their mothers and getting their hair did and getting their nails did and all that stuff, and it used to make me sad. But at the same time, I'd be like, I wouldn't even want to go with my mother. I'd just go with my dad. Now, my dad, dealing with two damaged teenagers, it was very hard for him. It was very hard for us. He wasn't always the most patient person. He wasn't always the perfect dad. He did, lose control or, said things or done things that were, that were mean. Most likely out of frustration because he'd have to work every day, come home, and me and my brother would be fighting, physically fighting all the time. And, but he did a good job by himself. He never got us a stepmother because he didn't want to do the same thing as my mum. It probably would have been a good idea to get a good stepmother because I didn't need that female kind of like advice sometimes. But growing up around men made me really understand them and made me really feel for them. So, yeah, just right now I'm going through a court battle. Well, I'm helping my guy go through a court battle with his ex, which is a whole other story, which I'm probably not allowed to really get into because it's in court now and it's privacy laws and all that. But put it this way, this is my desk. Okay, we have everything here that I do to my affidavits. I do all the legal paperwork. So ladies, if you're a stay-at-home mum, if you've got time, if you're good at researching, help your guys do it. You're in this fight just as much as they are. And, you can do this. You can self-represent. Don't expect to be perfect when you're self-representing yourself. It's worth paying, a couple of $100 to like a lawyer and asking them for a little bit of advice, and then you just take it from there. If you can write posters on the internet, if you can write about your story on Facebook, you can write an affidavit, you can print out and paste, text messages and etc. etc. You can put it all together, hand it into the courts, hand it into her lawyers, whatever. You can do it, okay? You can do it. If you need help, ask for help. All right, guys, over and out.